مساء حولين Daf Sabdi Amud Aleph, 12 lines down, Amar Rabbi Hiya Bar Yosef. We're going on, we said earlier that the Mishnah says that the Gida Asher applies to Kochim animals. La Asher ala Kochim and only refers to Kochim that are eaten. Avakachim she'en nechlin, but like in the korban olah, which we just burn and it's not eaten, any isur gid no heg bahen. There's no problem with the gid hanasheh. We'll see that in soon. Either way, isur gid no heg bahen. There's a problem. Or it's not a pa. Lo plugis in a malchuget. Kan lahal koto. Yochanan's case is where if you would get malkut for eating that one. Kan halato. Rabbi Chayav, but in one case, if you bring on the mizbeach, you could be chayav. Ikadar version of Marapah, the kind of also one saying you have to take it out before offering it. The kind of one says you're allowed to bring it up. Nachma is hakamar. The alato pligi machloket without you allowed to offer it up. The Tanna Bite says, "Ve'tiraku in the kol mizbeach." You should bring the entire korban on the animal mizbeach. The rabot ha'atzmot ba'gedim ma'karafan. The thing that even includes the stuff that we don't usually touch: the bones, sinews, horns, hooves. That's burnt as a korban olah. You may think even to separate it, you should bring it to my pasuk says meat and blood. Only if it's attached. Maybe you can include the other things. Only the meat. Tomorrow the pasuk says everything. Okay, it's not how you do that. Only if it's attached to the meat, you bring it parashu separated. Afilu biro shosh it's already on top. You still bring it down. Who do we see? Where do we see an opinion that if it's separated, you bring it down, and a B, he's going to the B. Tell him it says, everything. Let include bones, sinews, horns, hooves. Feel pashu even separated. How do I explain the pasuk? Meat and blood. The Pakins refer to something that pops with the mizbeach from the when it's if it's on the fire and bursts off. Okay, I have this. Okay, it said meat that was partially burnt and there's korban olah that pops off, you put it back on. But if the sinews or bones that are partially consumed, they fall off, you don't put it back on. Be there. Says burn everything. Riba, therefore, it adds the stuff, the bones, sinews. Says may I that's excluding the other stuff. Because it says meat. Like I said, I use mouth. If it's attached, you bring it, but a shub is separated. I feel it it's on top. You still bring it down. So you see, Rabbi is the one who holds that bones and sinews that are separated don't go up, but you do put it up. So but according to Hamim, you do bring it up. Rabbi according to Hamim, will say that the pasuk of the bones and sinews, it means that if it's separated, you don't bring it up. You don't need a pasuk to include it. Because the head of the animal. Right? Because pasuk says the olah head gets put on even though it's mostly bones. When's pasuk need to teach you that the bones and stuff are brought on? The parasha is talking about separated. But according to the B, is referring to that bones and sinews that are attached are mutar. I don't need to bring a pasuk. It's attached. But I'm not going to mean why don't I need a pasuk for getting a share? Pasuk says, it mentions korbanot, mentions the feast of Bnei Israel, seemingly whatever is permitted to Bnei Israel, which excludes the Gidin Hashem. Rabbi according to Rabbi, media have a highly badam the same. You can't bring a proof from that because I also have the chalev and the dam of korban, which are not mutar to be eaten, but you still bring it as a korban. Rabbanan answer, mesatan bekach shanilo. When it's decided to, it's different. So again, we see whether or not the Gidin Hashem or korban Allah burning beach is still a malchok or not. Mavna, Gidin Hashem Allah, the Gidin Hashem Allah, also the tepor, you remove it and you put it on the apple ash mound on the middle of the beach. Mar hizda, mari deche. He said, it's like more like Shema Yisrael. Miktiv alkin lo yochal mizbeach. Does it not say? Does the pasuk say you're not allowed to eat from the Gidin Hashem from the mizbeach? Alkin lo yochal b'nei Yisrael. The pasuk says b'nei Yisrael not from the mizbeach. What did Rebbe Huna? How does Rebbe Huna explain? B'mashkei Yisrael me'amotai Yisrael. Seemingly you equate whatever b'nei Yisrael has to eat as the korban. Versus metveh. That's why you can't put the Gidin Hashem as korban. Metveh question. Gidin Hashem shlamim. Gidin Hashem korban shlamim. Bechabdol amah. You throw it into the canal to be disposed. Ma'ala, you bring it down. Ma'ala, seemingly, Ma'ala, you still bring it. Gemara says, La, Ma'ala, you bring it up and you throw it away to the ash mound. If you're still removing it on the top, why are you bringing it in the first place? The person says, Mishum Shneimar, Takrivehu lan lepahatecha. The famous concept that we see in Pasuk that you treat things with respect for Hashem, the same way you would do it for a president or a governor. And therefore, it would be disrespectful to bring something that's already dissected onto the Mizbeach. So you do it on top. Tana Keterevuna, Yidin Shesh Amim proof, Yidin Shesh Amim, which is eaten Mechabdullah Amah, you throw into the canal, Shulah, Granola, Chosulah Tapuach, you remove it on the top, and you put it into the mound of ash. Tanata Mishnah says, Tapuach Yabim from the Mizbeach to the ash mound in the Mizbeach. Ba'im Mea Ala Bikrosh Me'at Kur. We said this prior as well in Masechet Hamid, that there could have been 300 kud of ashes on it. That's how Yana is a lot. Maravat Guzman, it's an exaggeration. Hishkul Tamid Bekosh Zahab. Another Mishnah says that they would give the Tamid, the lamb, to drink from a golden cup. Why? So that it makes it easier to remove the iron. Maravar was Guzman, you don't need a gold copy with copper. Maravmi, the better Havai. Torah speaks in exaggeration. The English Havai and Hachamim speak and the Nevi'im spoke in exaggeration. The Brahmin Havai and also Hachamim spoke in exaggeration. The Brahmin Havai, I don't know. Where do we see Hachamim? Just now with the case of the gold cup. Torah Havai Harim is a lot of mentioned Torah also like exaggeration. We said the cities were fortified to have skies. Obviously exaggerated. They were in English and I received the Nevi'im for exaggerated because the Pasuk says when they were dancing and singing, the ground split from how much noise there was. Three times Hami mentioned the exaggeration of these other. Tapuach regarding now with the man of ash, that it was 300 kud of ash, and Geffen regarding the grapevine, Uparochat regarding the parochet. Tapuach had already mentioned the ash already. Geffen, this Mishnah says regarding the grapevine, Geffen shows the Havaita, Amrid Apitol Shneichal, there was a grapevine made of gold, by the entrance of the Echal, Dula, Mudla, Agabet, Klanosod was hanging over poles. Whoever donated a grape or a cluster of gold, maybe it's able to hang it on it. One time said that the dog one time needed 300 konim to remove all the gold that was there. Obviously exaggeration. Where's the exaggeration by the Barochet? The Mishnah says that Rabban Shimon Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Hasakan. Barochet Ovya Tefach. The thickness of the Barochet was Tefach. It was woven on 72 shafts. Each thread had 24 strands. Length was 40 amot. Its width was 20 amot. It was made from 820,000 threads. They were made twice a year because to be replaced from the smoke. They needed 300 konim to dip it. Again, we see the number 300, which means it was an exaggeration. Small. Mishnah said the right did not share, the left did not share. Matatina Mishnah, which says both sides are a sword, look Ribidat against Ribidat. The time it says Ribidat says Eno no Hegel Bahat. It applies to the one fly. Bahadat, Merkat, and logically we'll assume it's the right one. He probably said Meshap Shita Ribidat. Is it obvious from it's the right side? Umadat does mean logically, Dat Torah means logical Torah. Or do we want to fuk maybe he says I'm not sure. Umadat, that no tending means logic. It leans toward the right. The man says Tashmat bring proof. Hatzmot like it bones, sinews, and leftover meat of the Quran Pesach. You said food is Shisha Asar, you burn on the 16th of Nisan the next day. We asked the question, what type of sinews? Sinews of flesh, the Achlinu has to be burnt, has to be eaten, Yani. Vida Atar, if it was left over, and Nutar, something is left over, meat to burn. Like Savar is referring to the neck sinews, which do not to be eaten. But if it's not edible, then let it be thrown out. We have to burn it. We only have minhag for one of them. Mar says, yeah, my person must have exactly Shapir. Makes sense if it's Safek, because I'm not sure which one. And the Amar Shap Shit Libby shoot for the right one. Let him eat the left one. These from understand and the right one throw him out. Obviously it's Safek. Mar Ika Barahinina Lealam Imalach Mavshat Pshitale Mazirida was positive was the right one. Bahman scheme was the case. Bishukuru also we had both sinners in front of him, both Gidan and Hashez, and then he lost it. They got mixed up. Rashi says no, then it's a Chalashim. No. This refers to the fat of the Gidan Hashed. The Henry says Shalom Mutar, the fat of the Gidan Hashed is Mutar. I mean, right, we said Kudushim, no, but we're careful, we make it as if it's Asur. Rabbeinu Rabbeinu says, as long as like the following opinion. Rabbi Shmuel, Shnei the two sinews that are in the thigh. Pinemis hamuch the inner one, which is next to the bone. Asur b'hayden, that's the actual Gidan Hashem. Midraitan yachem makut. Heitzon hamuch basar, the outer one next to the flesh. Asur b'nachayav, lenin haynana. It is asur, but not chayav malkut. Tashman's being approved. Acham mizeh kizayit. Someone ate a kizayit from the right and the left. So fake when he gets 80. Vidan Mary says inu sefek when he gets 40. Yeah, my Shabir makes something like this. Positive, that's why he's chayav level. At the end of exactly, but if he's not sure, having that as a fake, it's considered an uncertain warning. Because you're not sure which ones I have. Which I mean, later we know Rabbi says that if it's an uncertain warning, it's not chayav. It's not a good warning. The Tanakh says, "I got that zeva hazar gader, kilat zeva kilat zeva, kiyash nem vatachad, or shkilat nem vatachad chayav." First opinion is in this machloka we had it previously as well regarding the father. Person is safek which one is his father. He hits one, hits the other, he's chayav mita. If he hits the cursed one and the other is chayav. So the first opinion says if he did both, he's chayav, or at the same time, or one after another. If he says no, the have only if he did at the same time because definitively a definitive warning. But not if it's after one after another. So again, since Rabbi says in the Mishnah that the guy gets malkut, he must hold only get malkut for one of them. For one of the Gidan Hashem, it must be that the right one's chayav. This Braita actually holds like a different opinion of Rabbi that different version of Rabbi that actually would hold that a safek warning is a good safek. Tanner says with the menum advocation is grown by into the morning. Back to Venasa teaches you that it's a positive commandment to burn leftover meat after saying is asur to leave it over. The must be the nomakut. Let me do that for today. No, let me show you that. It's not the reason. And let me show you the reason why you're patur. The reason why you're patur from malkut is because there's no action. The whole they don't get malkut for something that doesn't have action, which means that Bida would hold that you would have been chayav even though it's safek. Tashman's being a proof. Two Gidan Hashes from two thighs from two different animals. Safek one gets 80. Bidamer, Enum Safek right when he gets 40. Since this Mishnah specifically mentioned two thighs, two different animals, Pshita Travali Surah must be there both asur, same side. Urida Itzrich, and the Hidush is teaching you when it's only different animals. Now, if he wasn't sure which one, you wouldn't get it all. Obviously, it was the right side, and that's why he's chayav.